it feels like we as a people, as a society now, are kind of just treading water, waiting for the other shoe to drop, which for me is a sovereign debt crisis, the breaking of the bond market. But this is a perfect way to get out of here. You yourself have come out publicly many times and talked about how you're leaving the United States. I am actually seriously considering it now, especially if I think, if the sovereign debt crisis and the way that we just passed the big beautiful bills, another $3.5 trillion added to the debt. What happens next, in your view? What happens over the next 5 years in America?
It's a great question. It's the right kind of question to be asking, right? So the stimulus intentions behind the big beautiful bill are mathematically sound, but they're only mathematically sound for the short term. Meaning, if we see a benefit, which we should empirically, when you think about the probabilities, we should see interest rates drop. We should see more people taking loans. We should see more money spent. So we should see an economic benefit in the next 6 to 18 months. But after that 18 to 24 month window, unless the economy has changed its momentum, we're going to be right back in the same situation that we are now. Only now we'll be in that situation with more inflation, with less foreign investment, and with less of an appetite for people to buy U.S. debt,
right?
Because they don't believe that U.S. debt is ever going to get paid off.
Yeah.
Right. So you can offer people the highest bond
yield
interest rates in the world, and they're not going to take it. Like, no one's going to. There's a reason none of us invest in Venezuela, even though it has like a 28% yield, because we don't believe it's going to ever actually pay the yield. Right.
Right.
So
I always tell people, don't focus on the stock market. The Venezuelan stock market is like parabolically high. It just keeps going to the moon because the currency is worth worth what you wipe your ass with. And already this year, the US dollar has lost 10% of its value. So what do you think is going to happen after another $3 trillion gets added to the $37 trillion worth of debt? Yes, there will be a lot of money in the economy. People will still have jobs, but the money that you get is worth so much less, and foreigners don't want it anymore.
Correct. So, and that's the big thing that Americans need to understand, that if you live in America and you only deal with American currency and you only deal with American customers, and if America is you, then you live in a little bubble. And anywhere that bubble floats, whether it floats up or whether it floats down, you're just along for the ride. For anybody who has money and for anybody who deals across international borders, you have to understand that there's a larger currency game at play. And as the US dollar loses value, people who have the US dollar try to get rid of their US dollars to exchange it for a currency that doesn't have so little value. And every time somebody trades a US dollar for a European euro or for a Japanese yen, every time a US dollar is traded for a foreign currency, that US dollar loses even more value because of supply and demand. There's so much supply and so little demand, the value of the dollar just keeps on dropping. So to your original question, what do the next 5 years look like? I think we're looking for 1 to 1.5 years of positive increase where inflation declines, the economy is stimulated, maybe people even buy a house or a car again. And then, unless there has been a major shift in our economy, like a wartime economy, right? If Russia prosecutes more war across Europe, if China invades Taiwan, if Israel decides to go head to head with Iran again, it would take a massive change like that to change our economy. Because if what Donald Trump is trying to do is benefit from a wartime economy without having the United States be actively engaged in a war, he understands that if we're selling our weapons, our intel, if we're giving training to foreign troops, we don't have to worry about American citizens dying, but we get all the economic benefit of producing weapons, selling maps, selling intelligence, etc., renting our equipment basically out to other governments, and taking loans and getting leases on the area and territories that are being destroyed. Somebody's going to rebuild Ukraine. Why wouldn't it be the United States? Somebody's going to have to rebuild Taiwan at some point. Why wouldn't it be the United States? So Trump is really playing this game of, can he stall a massive recession in enough time to change the economic engine so that the economy can bounce back? For me, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a bounce back that's strong enough, which is just one more reason why I'm happy to take my company's money, convert it into foreign currency, and live outside of the United States.
Totally. And I mean, let's not forget about gold. I mean, for the last 10 years, but certainly since the Ukraine-Russia war, we'll call it a conflict, but it's a war, the central banks have been dumping U.S. dollars and stockpiling thousands of tons of gold every year. So that, a lot of people speculate that what's coming will be kind of a new monetary reset in the global order. So the powers will sit down and say, okay, we're now going to back the U.S. dollar is no longer going to be what currency we use to settle international trade. It's going to be gold because we can't trust you fucks. All you do is create more of this thing, which is printing U.S. dollars, and it's everybody else. That being said, I think about, that's not going to be an easy process. Trump and the powers that be in the central banks, they're motivated to keep the ball going as long as possible. They're not just going to say, hey, you guys, let's sit down and discuss the new system about how the dollar's not going to be the world's reserve currency anymore. Nobody in our elite want that. They'll do it because they have to do it. So I think about the USSR, and I think about how at the end of the Cold War, it was just that they were bankrupt, and their top-down system, you can call it communism if you want, but it was a top-down bureaucracy, was just so inefficient, and they spent so much on their military buildup since the end of World War II that Mikhail Gorbachev did something heroic, and he said, you know what, we're done. We're done. We're dissolving this. Do you see that happening, say, in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, could something heroic like that happen in the United States, where somebody from our generation or my generation, somebody that wasn't, didn't come of age in the, during the U.S. empire and the rise of the fiat bubble, could that happen to where we say, okay, no more of this. We're going to back our money by something tangible like gold or Bitcoin or whatever, and no more empire. We're going to agree to this kind of new regional multipolar world. Or is it going to take something like a war and for us to really fall to our knees before that happens?
So yeah, it's a great question. Here's what I think is most likely. And again, anything can happen, but what I think is most likely is that we are setting up for between 5 and 15 years of pain, of just economic, geopolitical pain, where the United States has a very, very ungraceful fall from power and influence. It doesn't mean that we are no longer the only superpower. It just means that people realize that the way we have maintained our superpower strength is through being the biggest bully on the square. You know what I mean? And people are going to stop wanting to do business with us. They're going to want to start to diversify away from the US dollar, diversify away from US technology, diversify away from US financial markets, diversify away from US diplomacy and diplomatic efforts. And they're going to look for alternatives. But that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to take time. And I think what we saw with the first Trump presidency is that Donald Trump, if anything, his activities as president has kind of act as a catalyst to prime that pump. Mm-hmm. People were thinking about it before, but now they're taking much more active steps to do it, right? And you're seeing it all across Europe. You're seeing it with NATO. You're seeing it in East Asia. You're seeing it in Latin America. people want to decouple from U.S. supremacy. Now, the U.S. is going to try to solve that somehow. It's going to try to use tariffs to bully people back in line. It's going to try to use, humanitarian aid to try to win people's influence and love back. Like we're gonna go through this ungraceful decline where we grasp and we try to get the pretty girl's attention again, and it's just not going to work. I don't think that anyone from my generation or your generation or even the next generation is actually going to be able to reset the way that we do business, banking, currency, etc. However, I do believe that it is somebody from one of those three generations who will set the narrative in place that becomes like tomorrow's next great movement. Whether that next great movement is cryptocurrency, whether that next great movement is bringing us pegging us back to gold, or whether it's something that we've never even heard of, right? I think there's a chance that somebody will start the conversation in the next 30 years that will change the way the United States works in the next 50 years. I'm just not optimistic that, you and I are going to sit on rocking chairs with gray hair and knee replacements before we see a big change in the United States.
So in other words, in the short to medium term, the next 5 to 10 years, it's not looking good.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt everybody. And the people who have a way of earning their own money outside of US dollars, or have a way of earning their own money and then storing their money outside of US dollars, those are going to be the people who are affected the least. So if you understand ETFs, or if you have an offshore bank account, or if you open a business and open a business bank account in a foreign country that's got a more stable currency like the Swiss franc, even the euro right now is better positioned for stability than the US dollar, right?
Yeah. Wow. So you recommend, it sounds like you recommend like people, what can people do? Well, yeah, start your own business if you can, like really be your own man and deal in dollars or wherever you're at, deal in fiat, and then go to either the most stable fiat currency, which is probably the Swiss franc, or for me, like I buy Bitcoin, I put it in Bitcoin, or a lot of people buy gold, real estate, whatever it is, whatever the government, especially central banks, can't manipulate.
That's basically it. And it's, I'm not gonna make a personal recommendation. I'm just gonna tell you what my wealthy clients do and what I do. And the name of the game for the wealthiest people that I know is diversification. You keep a little bit of money in US dollars. You keep a little bit of money in cryptocurrency. You keep a little bit of money in different types of American financial investment vehicles. You keep a different amount of money in offshore bank accounts. And your goal is that when any one of those 5 or 7 options really starts to tank, you flood your money out of the thing that's tanking into the thing that's working. So then everybody loses, but you limit how much you lose. Whereas when you have all of your money tied up in one American bank account, you're when the US dollar goes under.
Yeah.
Just like everybody who had all of their money in a Venezuelan bank account in the 1980s was as soon as the Venezuelan dollar crashed or the Venezuelan peso crashed, right? So you've got to be prepared to diversify. And if you're not going to diversify, then you at least have to be able to control the income that you make, where if you work harder, you make more. And if you're doing a 9-to-5 job for some other asshole, you can't do that. If anything, your 9-to-5 job is a slave job to the asshole and whatever they decide to pay you. They could call you tomorrow and say, hey, we're not going to pay you $11 an hour anymore. We're going to pay you $9 an hour. Or we're not going to pay you as a manager anymore. We're going to make you a supervisor. And what are you going to do? You're going to quit and go find another job in an economy that's recessed and tanking with a US dollar that's on the recession? Like, come on. You're going to say you're an asshole, but I'll take that $11 an hour job and I'll just suck it up. That's what you're going to say. And that's how the economy works. The economy works on the people who shape the economy and the people whose lives are shaped by the economy.
I think more likely it'll be everybody has a job, and hey, you're not going to make $11 an hour anymore. You're going to make $25, but that $25 buys you $9 worth of You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly right.
Like that's
Exactly
kind of
right.
it's gonna be a recession up. So and if you can, as what you're doing, you're getting out of Dodge until things cool down.
Correct. So, if anybody wants to know kind of my personal recipe for success, I'm starting. I have created a subsidiary business to go along with my business. That subsidiary business is based in Europe, and it will be a housing, a place to hold euros. So U.S. dollars will be paid to the foreign account as, and then converted into euros, and I'll pay all the right conversion fees. But then my euros will sit there stable as I get to see if the US dollar goes up or down. If I'm right and we see the US dollar go up in value for the next 18 months, I'm going to keep buying euros because now I can buy even more euros with a stronger US dollar. And if in the future the US dollar continues to rise, I'll cash out my euros and buy US dollars again. But as soon as my US dollars start to crash, I'm going to have a reserve of a foreign currency that I can use in, I forget how many states are in the EU right now, or how many countries are in the EU right now, but it's a currency that's stable that might fluctuate 2 or 3%, but it's not fluctuating, 8 to 10%.
Right, right. Well, hey, look, dude, we are. That was awesome. We appreciate your take, and yeah, things don't look good. And I think I don't know. It's pretty fascinating though to think that there could be a substantial out migration of Americans to different parts of the world. Just like for centuries, everybody was coming here. Everybody wanted to come to. If we think about countries as clubs, everybody wanted to come to our club. Now you're going to see so many Americans going to Mexico City. You already do. Europe, Portugal, these places, perhaps places in Asia, right?
And I wouldn't say you're going to see it, Johnny. I would say it's already happening, right? The rise of the golden visa program about 4 or 5 years ago was the beginning of it. When people would get golden visas to Dubai or golden visas to the UAE, golden visas to Saudi, golden visas to Portugal, Spain, Italy, right? Those programs were so popular that in the last 2 years, those countries have had to stop those programs.
Wow.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people. Think about this, man.
Wow.
So many foreigners, mainly Americans, so many Americans flooded these countries with investment, with property buying, with all the things that they needed so that they could have a diversified portfolio for where to live, so that they could have a second passport. So much money came in that it actually created housing crises in these other countries. So then those countries had to stop accepting people on the golden visa program. So the fact that we're talking about this, it's not new news. The difference is that it's only been the option of the very, very wealthy. Thanks to COVID, we all realized the benefit of remote work and digital nomad businesses. So now you don't have to be a decamillionaire to be able to live in a foreign country. You can literally live in a foreign country and make $12,000, or $24,000 a year, and get a digital nomad visa and start earning your money in a foreign currency that's more stable than the US dollar.
Totally. For me, it's like, it depends. If war breaks out in the Middle East, I'm looking at Uruguay, dude. I'm looking at a place that nobody gives a about and nobody will give a about. That's where you got to go. Mexico is not further enough south to get out of the nuclear blast zone. You know what I'm saying? You got to go to a nice, tucked out of the way place with very, very limited government. And, I think it's kind of unfortunate, but
it's the reality.
It's the reality. It's the reality. And you, Mr. ex-CIA agent, certainly do live in reality. I hope you found some religion since we spoke last. I hope you've now found the Lord, as I have. But that's for another day. Andy Bustamante, can't wait for you to be in studio with us. in a few months. But please plug your new book and tell us what it's about, where they can get it, and we're going to link to it in the description of this episode, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So my CIA spy memoir has been blocked by CIA for the last 3 years. We finally threatened them. We threatened them with a First Amendment lawsuit, and that was enough to get them to say yes. So going back to your Diddy and Epstein's, like the legal process in the United States works out, and you can't block someone's First Amendment rights. So our book, Shadow Cell, is the ops memoir of my wife and I, and our operation against to start basically a brand new spy war and execute a new spy war on behalf of the United States against multiple major aggressors at the same time that CIA was covering up a mole inside of CIA. So it's a story that nobody's heard before. CIA has been trying to cover it up. They successfully covered it up in the news for a long time, but we finally get to share all the details through our own personal story, which is why we had the ability to potentially sue on First Amendment. So you'll find it all over the world, in Europe, in the UK, in Australia, in the US. It's a global release with one of the top 5 publishers in the world, Hachette. The link is, of course, in the description below, but you can also find it online if you look up the words Shadow Cell.